10 minutes ago, you were cowering in fear because you didn't know what was going to happen. Now, you know everything is and we're going to be killed, and you're all cheerful. I don't get it.
I guess I'm an optimist.
An idiot, not an optimist.
Often reduced to a punchline, memed, mocked, remembered more for his bowling invites than any act of consequence, Roman Bellic has long stood in the shadow of Grand Theft Auto 4's darker narrative. To many, he was comic relief. Loud, naive, obnoxiously optimistic. Niko's polar opposite. Where Niko was cold, broken, and haunted by bloodstained memories, Roman was warm, foolish, and eager to believe in a dream that had already been bought and sold to the highest bidder. But to understand Roman is to look past the jokes and beyond the exaggerated antics, because behind every over-the-top phone call, every dumb comment about women, mansions, and the supposed American dream was a man crumbling under the weight of his own illusions. On the surface, Roman was Niko's opposite, but deep down, he really wasn't. He was more akin to his echo, just distorted through the lens of denial. Both men fled from ghosts, both carried guilt they never fully admitted to. Both believed in the promise of the American dream, just different versions of it. Niko came chasing redemption, convinced he could bury his past by finding Florian Kravitz and starting over. Roman, on the other hand, was chasing fantasy. He thought he could shortcut his way to wealth, to luxury, to a life that had only ever existed in dreams back home. But while Niko wore his pain openly, Roman buried it beneath layers of fantasy. He lied to Niko. That part is undeniable. Lied about the luxury, the success, the freedom. Told tales of cars, cash, and a better life, when in truth he was knee-deep in debt to loan sharks, sleeping in a roach-infested apartment above a failing cab company, and gambling away what little he had in smoke-filled back rooms. And still, he begged Niko to come. It's easy to judge him for that, as Niko once did, to call him a compulsive liar. And for many of us, it begs the question of how could you do that to family? But Roman wasn't some master schemer using his cousin for gain. He was desperate, terrified, and maybe more than anything else, lonely. Maybe it was never about the mansion or the big-breasted women or pretending to live like a king. Maybe it was about reaching across the ocean and trying to pull someone out of the same pit he had barely managed to escape from, and to tell him that there is another way, a better way, for them both to move forward. Because despite everything, the chaos, the scams, the fights, the consequences, Roman loved Niko. He loved him in the only way someone who had struggled with, cried with, can truly love someone. He remembered who Niko was before the war, before the betrayals, before the weight of so many dead men pulled him down. And in Roman's mind, if he could just get his cousin to Liberty City, if he could just rebuild something together, maybe he could give Niko a reason to hope again. Maybe they could both escape what really followed them. But Liberty City didn't save Roman. It consumed him. The same system he idolized, the one he sold a Niko on, chewed him up, spit him out, and left him bleeding. His apartment burned. His business leveraged, manipulated, and then burned. His dream turned against him, used to blackmail the only person who ever truly had his back. Roman didn't just lie to Niko, he lied to himself every day. And it was that lie, the lie of the dream, the belief in a system that feeds on hope, that ultimately broke him.
Your mother is there, but for me there is nothing. The old country stopped being home for me when Mama was taken from me in the war. Here is my home now. My mother would be here if she was still alive.
Now, we don't need to recount every detail of Roman's past, but if we're going to understand the man he became, the dream he chased, the lies he told himself, the hope he clung to, we have to go back, not to the apartment in Liberty City, but to what came before that, to the roots of the dream he brought with him across the ocean. Roman didn't fight in the war that tore their homeland apart. He didn't carry a rifle or stare down death on muddy battlefields like Niko did. He left, fled west, headed for America with a suitcase full of stories and the desperate hope that this new world could erase the one behind him. But running from the war isn't the same as escaping it. Roman was still very much shaped by it, just like Niko was. Shaped by the same darkness, the same poverty, and the same kind of father. Both of the cousins grew up in households dictated by cruelty and alcohol, with Roman even going so far as to saying he never mourned or felt anything when he found out his father was another casualty of the war. He was someone who only ever had kind words for people who helped him facilitate his drinking habits, and for that he could care less for whatever happened to him.
My mother would be here if she was still alive. She was such a strong woman. She'd have to be to deal with my pig of a father.
I was sorry to hear of his death, Roman. We have not spoken about it.
That is very kind of you, cousin, but You would be the only one who is sorry that he died. His only kind words were for the men who'd lend him money to get drunk with.
Just like my father did.
He felt nothing, maybe even a sense of relief. A quiet confession heavy with years of resentment. But it wasn't his father's death that broke him, it was his mother's. Her passing didn't come with fanfare or dignity, it was sudden and brutal, and it happened while Roman was still young. The details were never fully explained to him, only that she had died and there was nothing left for him in the ruins of the home. After that, he was taken in by Niko's family, his aunts becoming his mother in every way that counted. And from there, the two boys were raised together in the same house, under the same roof, clinging to each other in a world that gave them nothing else. But there was a grim truth Roman would never know. It wasn't until years later, long after they both had left the old country, long after the war had turned them into men with ghosts, that Niko revealed the full story to Kate McCreary. During the story, he reveals that he was the one to find Roman's mother, and she hadn't died in some quiet, accidental way. She instead had been raped and murdered, another innocent claimed by the same chaos that consumed their homeland. And Niko was barely a boy himself at the time, but had been the one to see what was left of her.
My aunt, the Roman's mother, she was raped and murdered. I found her. Roman does not know. He thought she died in a house fire.
I'm so sorry.
The world is hard. What are you going to do?
And so he made the quiet decision by himself, then and there to protect Roman from that truth. He lied to his cousin, told him there had been a house fire, that it was sudden and painless. It was easier to believe, and it secured the fact that Roman would never go back home, running the risk of him seeing his mom, or seeing the lie that his house was still standing, creating that desperate sense of wanting closure. There's a certain kind of sympathy that starts to settle in when you look at Roman's story in full. Like so many others who came from war-torn corners of the world, he only ever really knew loss, death, fear, heartbreak. So when you look toward America, it wasn't just a destination, it was his salvation. A dream packaged in bright colors and bigger promises. And for someone like Roman, who spent his youth being beaten down by life, who'd lost both of his parents and had the war at his back, the fantasy became everything. Especially when you remember how close he and Niko really were. Their lives had been entangled since childhood. So when Roman left, when he crossed the ocean to try and start again, he didn't just want to succeed, he wanted to believe. He wanted Niko and his aunt to believe too. That's why he flooded their inboxes with exaggerated stories, mansions, beautiful women, sports cars, a life larger than anything they'd ever seen. Maybe none of it was true, or at least not the way he told it, but it was easier to pretend than to admit the struggle never really ended. Still, there was some truth buried beneath the embellishment. Roman had found a foothold. He built a small life in Broker, a borough filled with people just like him, immigrants who got off the boat and never left. Maybe it reminded him of home in some distant, fragmented way. Maybe that's why he stayed. Maybe that's why he wanted Niko to come. And compared to where they came from, even the smallest comforts could feel like a real triumph. Something as simple as eating well, living without constant fear. Things like that do add up. Bernie even makes a comment when seeing Roman again, noting how he's clearly been eating better. It's a funny offhand comment that was made at a time where it's been a decade since they last met, but it still says something. That even in this life that is far from perfect, Roman had found something more than survival. And that, for him, was more than enough. But enough or not, does that justify the naivety of his decisions?
Last night I had a dream.
Really?
Yes. You and I had a place of our own. In the dream, you've met the right woman. She's beautiful, pure like my Mallory. In the dream, Mallory and me are married, and everything is perfect.
A roach-infested apartment, a modest taxi business, in debt to loan sharks, and unwillingly sharing his girlfriend with his most aggressive loan shark is what his 10 years here in the States have gotten him. But to Roman, it was still different. It still felt like a giant sense of freedom. And in a way, he wasn't the only one with his share of debts that heavily influenced Grand Theft Auto 4's events. One of the most overlooked moments in the entire game, especially when it comes to Roman, is right when Niko discovers Dimitri betrayed him and handed him over to Ray Bulgarin. Bulgarin, of course, was a powerfully well-connected arms dealer and human trafficker from Europe. It was his belief that Niko owed him money as a major factor for Niko coming to Liberty City to begin with. He was in essence Niko's boogeyman, too well-connected and far too powerful for Niko to deal with, so he decided to just flee. And if there was ever a single hope of having a new life, it was just escaping Bulgarin. because even though Niko was haunted by much of the war, Bulgarin was at least an active problem and threat to his life. Anyways, if we fast forward to after meeting Dmitri and once Niko escapes the attempted ambush on his life by both Dmitri and Bulgarin at the warehouse, Niko desperately tries to get in contact with Roman, fully aware of what the danger of Bulgarin being here means for the both of them. When he finally does find Roman, Niko's in a state of panic never really seen again in the entire game. He's apologetic, broken, hopeless, with this being the first and probably only time where he feels like he's not in control of anything. It's a giant glimpse of just how terrifying and how big of a threat and problem Bulgarin was for Niko back in Europe. He doesn't have to say much of anything besides just that look, that panic, that quiet sense of surrender where he just apologizes for ruining Roman's life.
What's done is done.
Yes, but there's a bigger problem.
What?
That guy I owed money to, Bulgarin.
Yes, the guy in Europe who lives by the Adriatic.
Yeah, he's here now.
Great.
I'm sorry. I've ruined your life.
No, don't be like that. We can find a way out of this. Bunch of idiot Russians.
I will kill every one of them.
No, that's exactly what you won't do. We don't have time for revenge. We can't afford it.
What can we afford?
We can lay low.
And where in the whole game, it's Niko that's always in control. Niko always calming Roman down. Niko that's always pushing the two of them forward. Here, it's Roman that centers Niko. He tells his cousin to not be ridiculous. He didn't ruin his life. Better yet, he even steers Niko away from retaliation, reminding him that this is something that they just can't afford right now. Lying low was Roman's decision, even suggesting it without any grandeur, any over-the-top or dramatic lies, just straight, calm, sympathetic idea on how they can move forward. And it was his relationship with Mallory that then established them with a safe house in Bohan and connections that can help get them both off of their feet, or at least more so, Niko. As a quick side note, in addition to Niko's killing of Vlad, the immediate win for the two of them was of course getting rid of a loan shark over their heads. But unexpectedly, it greatly improved Mallory and Roman's relationship, to the point of even pushing her excitement at getting married, due to Roman later telling Mallory he was the one who killed Vlad on account of himself being lost to raw passion when he found out the two of them were sleeping together, which prior to this, she far from took him seriously.
Baby, when I look into your eyes, it means something. I see little Romans, I see little Mallorys, I see stars, I see angels. In my homeland, we have a saying.
Yeah, we got one too. You're a fag.
Jesus, Roman, you fucking idiota. How can I take you seriously?
Very difficult, I think.
Roman was always the one chasing fantasy, the one who bought into the lie that his luck would turn, that tomorrow would somehow manage to fix today. Pulling that trigger, making that hard call, and taking Vlad's life, that was never him. He ran from those consequences, hid behind false hope and dumb luck, and more often than not, that made things worse. That was Roman's default. He was the dreamer, the gambler, the man who told himself things would be okay even as the walls were caving in. But it's the rare moments when all of that slips away that show who he could be. The few times he recognizes how serious things have gotten when someone else's life is on the line. Those moments of clarity, of true genuine restraint, are fleeting, but they reveal more about Roman than the jokes of the denial ever could. We see it with Niko. When the weight of everything bears down, when Niko's too broken to see a path forward, Roman doesn't push back. He doesn't try to sell him on some dream or some scheme on how they can move forward. He just listens, quietly, because in that moment he genuinely understands. And later, even after his own mistakes nearly get him killed, kidnapped by Johnny Klebitz and handed over to Dimitri's men for gambling away more debt he couldn't afford, and being used as leverage by Dimitri to get at Niko, Roman still defaults to his previous excuses. He still leans on the same hollow optimism, the same tired defenses that Niko tore into him for back when he first arrived, when Roman's lies had already dragged them both into trouble with the Albanians. Until it finally pushes them into a compromise. Roman agrees to stop gambling, to stop digging holes they both have to crawl out of. No more debt, no more risking their lives on the turn of a card. And Niko, he agrees to let go of his urge for vengeance against the Russians, to stop feeding the violence. Instead, he sets its sights on something more personal, just tracking down Florian and Darko, not for revenge, but for the closure he's never allowed himself to feel. And in the middle of all this, They start building towards something that miraculously feels real, Roman's dream. Not a fantasy, not one of his usual delusions of fast wealth or easy success. A real dream, something quiet and grounded. He told Niko about it in a moment of desperation, when the fear had stripped them both down to their barest selves. He pictured a small restaurant, something modest and classy, a place they could open up together. Nothing flashy, just theirs. A home built out of peace, not blood. Perhaps we could also say that fed into Roman's delusions of getting rich, creeping back in yet again, because the real dream felt so far away. Because it's hard to chase anything, even if it's something small and quiet when you're drowning. It's easier to believe in fast money and shortcuts and the wealth that brings, to lie to yourself, than to sit in the quiet and wait for something to slowly and genuinely grow. The same could really be said for Niko as well. His belief that he could hunt down the men who betrayed him, reclaim control and rewrite his past, was just another version of the same spiral Roman was falling into. They really were mirrors of each other. Their dysfunctions just collided epically, and somehow it managed to work at the right times. Niko needed Roman to remind him of how he was before the rage, before the regret, before he became a weapon. And Roman needed someone who would finally call him out on his bullshit. Someone who would stop the bleeding, no matter how much it hurt. They saved each other, piece by piece. Slow reminders, aggressive pickups, just like family would. Building each other up all the way to the day of Roman's wedding, where the feasibility of that dream isn't necessarily shattered, but it is called into question.
Told me to leave it. I thought I had. I thought it was over.
It's never over, Aya.
Niko, you can't blame
Of
yourself.
course I can. She's dead.
Easy, your brother, man. Easy. Calm down.
There is no definitive canonical ending to Grand Theft Auto 4, but both outcomes offer radically different insights into Niko's morality, his growth, and the weight of Roman's influence. Accepting Dimitri's deal and Roman's urging leads directly to Roman's death, a punishment for Niko trying to turn the other cheek and genuinely turn over a new leaf. And it's a consequence Niko would probably never fully forgive himself for, or after some time maybe he does come to terms with it. His ending monologue, where he hunts down and kills Dimitri, gives credence to the idea that maybe after finding closure with Darko and Florian, meeting Kate, letting her and Roman smooth away the rough edges, left a lasting impression on him. It might have been difficult, but maybe he did come to accept that the past is done. There's nothing you can do to change that. There's no sense of losing yourself to it and getting stuck in this perpetual cycle. But rejecting the deal and killing Dimitri, even if it means losing Kate, is a reversion to form, because that does show him falling back into vengeance, into violence, into the one thing he knows how to control. Each path says something different about who Niko becomes and what Roman's memory means to him. With that said, there is reason to believe the revenge ending may be the intended canon, not just because it fits the thematic arc of Niko's internal conflict, but because of a small but telling Easter egg tucked away in Grand Theft Auto 5. On Niko's Life Invader page, his family count is listed as 3, and when the page was originally viewable, it showed Niko wishing Roman a happy birthday just 45 minutes prior. It's a quiet nod, but it does say a lot. If we take those 3 family members, which very well could be Niko's mother, Roman, and Mallory, it would mean Roman survived. He and Mallory got married, as seen at the end of Grand Theft Auto 4, and Niko's still part of their lives. His page claims that he's still a broker, still working out of the same cab depot. The restaurant dream may never have happened, but something close to it did. A shared business between the cousins, a place that belongs to both of them. Again, not glamorous, far from flashy, but it's real, hands-on and grounded, the kind of life they could both quietly commit to. It's a reflection of who they were, a pair that never made it far but somehow managed to make it through. And maybe that's all they ever really needed, because survival wasn't just an ending, it was a rebellion, a quiet refusal to let the world redefine what they were worth. They didn't conquer Liberty City, they didn't rise above it, they endured it. They carved out something small, in a place that had taken everything from both of them. The dream changed, the restaurant never opened, but the meaning stayed. Or at least, we don't know if the restaurant ever opened. There's still a lot of question marks, but what we can bank this off on is a shared life. A business with their name on the papers, 2 chairs in an office, maybe not a table in a diner, but still a place to sit, to breathe, to be. It wasn't luxurious, but it was far than enough.